Rarely in life do you have the opportunity to learn or meet somebody who is so gifted in what they do that it really makes you be in awe of this person. Through research and some readings that I have done through artnet.com, biography.com, the art story org, faithringgold.com, and the art newspaper, I came across an artist that I am in total awe and definitely going to be a big fan of. Faith Ringgold is a lady who was born in the 1930s amid the Big Depression. She is gifted in art as Einstein is in physics. This lady came from a family that wasn't rich, wasn't predominantly, big in cash, but she was the youngest of three and grew up in Harlem during the Great Depression. Just because she grew up during the Great Depression in Harlem, it didn't mean that she was poor or oppressed. On the contrary, she grew up amongst other artists in her life. She would have people come over that were artists, that painted, that were musicians. So her background was pretty full of art, and it was something that she really enjoyed. She, while she grew up, in the 1950s, she opted to go to college, and through pressure of her family and her parents, she decided to attend the City College of New York, where she planned to major in art. Well, being that one, she was a female, two, that she was Black, there were some majors that she was not allowed to participate in. So she was forced to participate in art education. By 1955, she had gotten her bachelor's degree and proceeded to grow her skills in the art industry. First, she decided to give it a kick off with paintings, and she did a lot of paintings, a lot of oil paintings on canvas, and had a lot of great things to do with that. A lot of her paintings, or most of her paintings, had a lot to do with women's rights, and the civil rights of Blacks. Due to that, there was a lot of controversy about what her art was and what it meant, and a lot of the collectors were not big on buying her stuff. So because of that, she kind of started to strategize and think about other ideas or other things that would make an impact on society and also be a voice in her community. She was great in activism. She was huge for women's rights, and then also she was huge for the civil rights movement. So she created something called the American People series at about in the 1960s, the early 1960s. And this series hit big. I mean, it was one of her biggest major series. But she also, during that time, was kind of saying, what do I do next? I don't want to just think about doing paintings. So in 1972, she goes to Europe with her daughter, Michelle. There she goes through a lot of cities. Her daughter takes off to another part of Europe, and she decides to hit Amsterdam. She goes to Amsterdam, and there she goes to the Rich Museum, and she becomes really, really influenced by the quilt art that is there. So she decides to comes home, and she starts creating stories on quilts. So now she has moved from doing art and canvases and oil, and now is doing quilts. And she makes great stories on quilts. Her number one story, or her first story that she creates on quilts, is called Who is Afraid of Aunt Jemima? And on this story, she has portraits of women, and next to the portraits are little stories, little captions of what that portrait is. And all it is pictures of people, or women, I should say, that have made some kind of impact or that she's trying to put out there. She also makes a series called Slave Rape Series and the Sunflower Quilting Bee, which is one of my favorite quilts. But she does quilts for several years and then transfers over to sculptures. In the 1970s, she does a lot of costume masks, and then also is doing some soft sculptures. The masks are some of the things that she has collaborated with her mother, and they do a lot of masks that are now going to be used in theater. She collaborates with her mother because her mother has taught her from an early age how to sew, how to, do all this stuff that has to do with putting things together. A couple of her biggest sculptures, one of them was Ben. It's called Ben, and it's just a fictional, some of her stuff is fictional characters, some of them not so fictional, but Ben is kind of a soft sculpture that she creates, and it's really pointed at the social, economic status of the Black people. Also, part of it is, the perception of women in the social economy. So I will show you Ben. I loved Ben. My favorite one was called The Family of Women, and it's just women that she has known from when she was little, so she created some sculptures in the 1970s. Shortly after that, she goes to doing publications. So not only has she done art, quilting, sculptures, now she is also writing, and this is her way of giving her voice out in another form. And she created 17 children books. The first one being Tar Beach, and then she creates other books around there. By now, she has up to now 1997. She has collected about 80 awards. 23 of them, which are honorary doctorates. She has been a great influence and motivator for a lot of other Black women and Black people coming up the ranks. She not only has done art herself, but has collaborated not only with her mother, but with other artists out there, and has taken other people under her wings. This is somebody that I found out about that I never in my 46 years would have ever come across if it wasn't because I was doing some research on artists for a specific class. So I am in total awe of her. I am a big fan of her, and I am going to ensure that I tell other people of who Miss Faith is and what she has brought to the art world, and she is still continuing to do. She has founded organizations for women, organizations for minorities, and she continues to be a great emphasis on equal rights and a great supporter of women's rights and women's movement, as well as other rights for minorities. So that is my little thing on Faith. One thing I do want you to take away is, if one person, a Black woman who was born in the 1930s in the middle of Depression, can use her skill set as something to give forth to the community and to the world, just think about what all of us might be able to do if we just used even a fifth of what we know and what we can do to make this world a better world. Thank you for coming.